With Hashem's help, I'd like to take a look at a teaching from a tzaddik by the name of Reb Nosson of Breslov. Reb Nosson, who was the primary disciple of Reb Nosson of Breslov. And among many of his svarim, he wrote an 8-volume set called Likutei Halachos, which is a sefer that provides commentary on the entirety of Shulchan Aruch, Daled Chalkei Shulchan Aruch, 8 times. So there's 8 drashas per each inyan siman of halacha, and everybody should really feel comfortable eating. It's not please dig in. I'm just entertainment. It's breakfast and a show. So 8 times he went through Likutei Halachos, which is a massive work, as everybody knows. And he didn't add anything on the level of halacha. It's not a halachic work. But Reb Nosson used the teachings of Rabbi Nachman Zchus Yagen Aleinu and the revelations of his philosophy and theology and his giluyim, his revelations in terms of how we can access spirituality, ruchnias. And Reb Nosson used those ideas to illuminate the spiritual meaning of all of the halachos. And so when a person's learning something hilchos ainah, something that seems the most mundane, plebeian, really removed from transcendent spirituality, or learning mekach umemkar, hilchos edu, something in choshen mishpat, like the furthest thing away from even, archaim is like spiritual, really something far, far removed, Reb Nosson demonstrates how every single detail of the halacha and the halachic principles, as they filter from the Torah Shebiksav down to the Gemara, and even I heard from Tzvi Cheshin, who was a Goyin Gadol, who was the Shalom Eshiv in the Mir Yeshiva, and a Breslover Chassid, who's been giving shiur Likutei Moharan for over 20 years, and I think he's done a third of the Sefer, maybe 2 hours every week. Absolute kala tarakula. Where Tzvi Cheshin said that if a person really knows the sugya of whatever area of halacha that he happens to be learning very, very, very well, he can find that Reb Nosson is hinting not only to the actual principles in Shulchan Aruch itself for the Gemara, but he's being mevarer the principles, he's clarifying the principles in the Rishonim and Achronim, all the different aspects of the halacha. Reb Nosson was a Goyin Gadol, and he's able to tie it in there. So this is one of my personal favorites. I can say I have not learned the entire Likutei Halachos, but of what I have seen, this is without a question my favorite piece, both in terms of the form and in terms of the content. And as Hashem, I think it will speak for itself, and so we'll let it do that. All b'siyata d'shmaya. So let's jump in. This is part of Hashkamas HaBoker Dalid. Like I said, there are 8 discourses that Reb Nosson wrote over his entire life, pretty much from his young 20s up until his late 60s, which he lived a pretty long time for that era, about 200 years ago. And Hashkamas HaBoker Dalid, like many of the drashas, are extremely long. Some of them are 30, 40 pages. So over here we're taking one snippet of one drasha. It's a very big set of svaras, 8 volumes. It's a huge work. But we're just jumping in sort of in the middle, but it is a self-contained idea without requiring us to know the backdrop of the Torah and Likutei Moharan from which Reb Nosson is coming from. So let's jump in. It says, if you can have the source sheets and look inside, that's all the better. And the tzaddik says like this, this is the deeper meaning. And when he says this, he's been discussing these ideas in the previous oisias, but we're going to get to that. This is the deeper meaning of the machlokas between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel as it relates to lighting the Chanuka candles. A very famous machlokas. Beis Shammai say, Poiches v'hoilech. That in terms of lighting the Chanuka menorah, how do we begin? We begin with all 8 candles lit the first night, and then each subsequent night we take 1 candle away. That's Beis Shammai. And of course, who do we paskin like? Beis Hillel. The Beis Hillel holds no. On the contrary, Mosif v'hoilech. Each night of Chanuka, you are adding another candle. You're not taking candles away. We begin with 1, second night we add 2, third night we light 3, and so on and so forth, all the way until the 8th night of Chanuka, which is called in the deeper Svarim Zos Chanuka, the pinnacle of Chanuka. We have the whole entire menorah lit, and that is the Shita of Beis Hillel. Says the Eiliger Reb Nosson, what's going on a deeper level? Because everything in Torah can be learned on the level of Pshat, Remez, Drush, Sod. Very, very, very deep. We can go deep into the underpinnings of these opinions and of these ideas. So says Reb Nosson, in understanding why Beis Shammai holds that we begin with 8 and go down to 1, we have to reflect on Shammai, who Beis Shammai was the extension of Shammai's light. This Tana, Shammai, what he revealed in the world. Ki Beis Shammai litameh. He says, Beis Shammai, the Talmidim of Shammai, are going in accordance with Shammai's tradition. Ki Amar Rabbi Seinu Zal, the Gemara tells us something about Beis Shammai, that Shammai haya kaptan. What do we know about Shammai? Shammai was a kaptan. What's the word kaptan? It comes from the word makbid. He was very, how do you translate makbid? Particular. Yeah, he was very exacting and particular. Things had to be a specific way. He was drawn, the Arizal tells us, from the side of gvura, strictness, severity. Everything has to be exact. He was unbudging, unmoving. And we know this from the Gemara in Shabbos that tells us that Gerim came to him and they told him, teach me the whole Torah on one foot, Gaireni al regalachas. And what did he do? Did Shammai accept them? Did Shammai make space for them? Shammai pushed them away. Udchafam ba'amas habinyan. And this wasn't because Shammai was like a chas v'shalom, like a bad guy, chas v'shalom. Shammai was a tzaddik, an unimaginable tzaddik. So what is this that he pushed them away? It's because Shammai is the midah of gvura. And midah of gvura is a very good thing. But this is the light of Shammai. Aval Hillel, but we know that Hillel, the bar plukta of Shammai, Hillel, the contrast of Shammai, Al Yedei Goydalan v'Sanusai, because of Hillel's great humility, Kirvein Barachamim, those very same Gerim subsequently came to Hillel, and Hillel, Amish Erev Shabbos, they drove him crazy. Remember the Gemara with all these questions. And what did Hillel do? He was Mekar of them with great love. Afal Pisha Loi Hayu Agunim Liskariv. They really weren't fitting to be drawn close, and that's why Shammai felt that the midah of Gevura necessitated pushing them away. And they were really they were trying to mock him, they were trying to test him, really. Who do they think they are? Coming Erev Shabbos, teach me the whole Torah, while standing on one foot? Ridiculous. But Hillel did not push them away. And Hillel found a way to channel the light of the whole entire Torah down. What did he tell them? If you remember, what you hate being done to you, don't you then go and do to someone else, which, according to the Ramban at least, is the reverse of Yahavta l'reacha kamocha. He distills the whole Torah down in such a way that these Gerim could be drawn close. He doesn't teach them the whole Torah, al regalachas, which is very important what we're saying now. He channels the whole Torah down into an accessible kernel where they could absorb it, and a seed can be planted that will then flourish. Hillel does not push them away. And he draws them close. Therefore, Beis Shammai, so the Beis Shammai, who are the disciples of Shammai, so they come from the same tradition. He was such an enormous tzaddik. He was so absolutely, transcendentally, incredibly holy. He wasn't able to handle those who are dirty with sins. He couldn't handle it. Not because he was, like we said, he's a mean person, mean-spirited. He was just so remarkably kadosh that he couldn't handle it. And this, says Reb Nosson, is the shita of poiches v'hoilech. Now, what's the connection? What shaykh is just because Beis Shammai was a kaptan and he wasn't able to handle those that were lowly or those that were distant from Hashem, from levels of kedusha? What does that have to do now with his talmidim's shita as it relates to the Chanuka candles that you start with 8 and go down to 1? What's the connection? Says Reb Nosson, and it's such a brilliant formulation. Ki Beis Shammai u Beis Hillel shnei amaydim. Certainly, both Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel agree that really, fundamentally, philosophically, it would be absolutely necessary to add light every subsequent day of Chanuka. That's something that both Beis Shammai agree and Beis Hillel agree. Why? Why does it make sense, l'chol hadeis, that we should be adding light every day of Chanuka? Says Reb Nosson, it's simple. Ki bevadei hanei shel yemei Chanuka shadalak haner shel haya balahadlik ki inyan echa v'dalak shmoini yabim. When they found just this little bit of oil that was supposed to last just one night, and then it lasts for 8 days, Bevadai, certainly, kol yoim shaba achrav, every subsequent day, from day 1, and then to day 2, and then day 3, and day 4, hanes gadol v'nifla b'yoser. What's happening to the miracle? It's getting even bigger and bigger, because a miracle from oil that lasts for 3 days is a bigger miracle than oil that lasts for 2 days. And oil that lasts for 5 days is a bigger miracle than oil that lasts for 4 days, and so on. So both Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel agree that be'etzem, we should be adding we should be adding light every day, because each day that the oil lasted longer is reflective of a greater spiritual revelation that we need to manifest in this physical world. And that's something Beis Shammai agree and Beis Hillel agree, that fundamentally Mosif v'hoilech. Shammai agrees with that too, because the nace increased every day. That means the spiritual light increased every day. So what's the difference? Ach Beis Shammai soivrim. Beis Shammai hold shemachmas ze ba'atzmain. This is very deep. That because the light of the spiritual gilui of Chanuka grows from day to day to day until it reaches its climax and its pinnacle on day 8. Because of this specifically, because of the great light that's being revealed from beyond each and every day in ever increasing measure, says Shammai, because the spiritual light is growing, we need to diminish it physically in the physical realm. Why? Because Shammai's shita is the captain who pushes away the geirim ba'amas habinyan. Shammai says, the greater the spiritual light, the world is not worthy to see this light. So as every day of Chanuka grows and the light is being revealed further and deeper in the world, Shammai says, the less we're showing to the world. The greater the R, the more we have to conceal it. Okay, in Sham Rabbi Seinu Zal. Now, where did Shammai get this from? It's a Gemara in Chagiga. Well, he didn't get it from the Gemara in Chagiga, but that's where we get it from. But he understands that it's a tradition in Chazal that really HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the light. And what did HaKadosh Baruch Hu see? V'yar sa'ar kitay. What did Chazal say? Kitay. What is it good? It's good, says Chazal, leganzai, to hide it. HaKadosh Baruch Hu she'ena olam kedai li'ishtamish ha'ma'ar shel shivas ha'mibereshis. HaKadosh Baruch Hu saw that the world wasn't fitting, wasn't ra'ui to receive and to deal and to access that light of the shivas ha'mibereshis. Va'amad v'ganzei l'tzadikim. What did HaKadosh Baruch Hu do? He stood up and he hid the light for tzadikim. Al kain heim soivrim. Therefore, Beis Shammai hold the same thing. Shegamata kisha tzadikim asigim ar gadol. When tzaddikim access great spiritual levels of attainment in understanding HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in understanding the secrets of the Torah, in understanding the depth and the infinitude of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's love and rachamim and the deeper elements of Torah, you gotta hide it. And the greater the tzaddik, the more he has to be removed from the people. So that those that aren't fitting, the wicked and those who are distant, should not be able to access. This is the shita of Beis Shammai, following the tradition of their Rebbe, the captain Shammai. Abel Beis Hillel. But the Heilige Beis Hillel, Sheimet Talmidei Hillel, who again are following the tradition of Hillel, Shaya Oisik L'Karav Rechaikim Ha'oid, who are always busy with Kirav Rechaikim. It's not a new thing. It's not a new thing at all, right? Not even so new that it's just not in modern times, but Reb Nosson 200 years ago is writing it, but he's writing it about Hillel, right? That the Heilige Hillel was always busy L'Karav Rechaikim. Al Kema Azlu Tamayu. So Beis Hillel says, well, how are you going to be M'Karav Rechaikim? So therefore Hillel says, Mosif v'hoilech, ki adarabba. On the contrary, kol masha tzadikim amshichim ar gadol v'noisif b'yoser v'yoser. The more we're able to access and spiritual lights are being revealed in the world to the tzadikim, that the tzadikim are tapping in to higher levels, deeper levels, more exalted understandings of each and every kutz, each and every like little crown of the Torah. They have to find a way to utilize these great spiritual wonders To let them shine for the whole world to see, so that everybody can be accessed, even those who are extremely distant from Yiddishkeit. To specifically use this great light to be able to reach those who are distant, those who are low, those who are far. To heal all of those who are so incredibly ill. Rachmana litzlan. Because Reb Nosson says, and it's based on Rabbi Nachman, everything here is based on Rabbi Nachman in Torah Lamed in Likutei Moharan. Ki kemay shekol ma sha'achayla gadol b'yoser tzarich levakish la'atzmei Rebbe ha'gadol b'yoser. He says, imagine a person who's a little bit ill. So you go to your local GP. Person's a bit, has the flu. Person has strep, he needs antibiotics. So you go to your local doctor. But the person who is critically ill, with a strange kind of virus that a regular doctor can't handle, what does he need? He needs the greatest specialist in the world. He needs the greatest surgeon. Some people travel from country to country just to be able to be treated by the greatest doctor with the greatest level of experience and the deepest understanding of whatever issue the person's struggling with. So Rabbi Nachman says if that's true physically, thank you so much, then it's true spiritually. So Rabbi Nachman says in Likutei Moharan and Sichas Aran, other places, he says, don't say, I'll just take any Rebbe. I'll just connect myself to any Rav or, whatever, I'm fine. I go to shul and I have a Rav. He says, you need to search for the deepest, most exalted tzaddik there is. Because for us, in 2023, Ikvus of the Mashiach, in our dark times, all of us, I could speak for myself, but I think you'll agree that all of us are experiencing a certain choshech, a certain darkness, a certain numbness, a certain confusion, a certain flailing, a certain feeling like we can't breathe, like there's no oxygen. And so for people who are in that matziv, deep down in the pit of Yosef, deep down in that bar, mayim ein bo nachashim v'akravim yeshbo, we need the deepest light of Torah, the deepest R, to be able to reach us. So k'moikein harebi v'hatzadik, so he says, well, that's true for the choleh, for the person who's sick, and it's true for the doctor. Imagine the biggest expert in the world decides for himself that because of his great experience and because of his great erudition, I think that's how you pronounce it, and his great studying, the doctor says, these people are so sick. It's not fitting for me. It's below my dignity to hang out with such people. Look at these people. This guy's catatonic. He's in a coma. I should hang. I'm such a great doctor. I should go and treat such a person. You say, on the contrary, what do you mean? You're such a great doctor, you specifically need to go and heal the sickest patient. So he says the same thing for the tzaddik. The tzaddik grows, he becomes closer to Hashem, he's able to channel deeper oiros and understandings of the Torah. He specifically needs to reach out and shine that light to the most distant places, to find a way to get what he's accessed to those who need it the most desperately. This is the greatness of the tzaddik. Not to stay, cloistered up in like an ivory tower of Talmudic, study. That's not the inyan. The inyan is to be able to use that level and that light to be able to be makar of the whole world. To be able to bring those who are the most distant. Sometimes, just because we're in the sugya of Breslov here, we're learning Likutei Halachas, a lot of times when it comes to Rabbi Nachman, people see some clips coming out of Uman, and it's confounding. They say, oh, look at this Rebbe, look who his Hasidim are. Look, such a person, and all these lowlives hanging out. And it's like, well, yeah, in a hospital you're going to find sick people, right? It's a hospital. Rabbi Nachman is such a great R that specifically he is able to touch the hearts and souls of people who have tattoos of, from their heads to their toe, and people who are the most distant from Kedusha. There's something that Rabbi Nachman specifically is able to give them. It's a great light. It's a great light, so it's able to shine to very distant places. And that was his whole thing, the tzaddik. Shezeu ikar gedulas Hashem yisbarach hu k'faydai. As Rabbi Nachman explains elsewhere, this is the greatest godless of Hashem, not when the great tzaddikim come close to Hashem. That's beautiful, and that's how things are supposed to be, and all of us should strive, ideally to try to get to those madrigas, but that's not the ikar kavod of Hashem. Because the Zohar Kadosh says the greatest kavod that was ever brought to Hashem was when Yisro, who served all the idol worshippers in the whole entire world, When Yisro came and said, Ki ata yadati ki gadol Hashem, now I know that God is great, says the Zohar Kadosh, Kedei nisyaker v'is'alo shma ilah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu's kavod had the greatest proliferation and elevation than it ever did in history from that point until when Yisro came close. And I'll remind you that we had Avram at that point, and Yitzchak and Yaakov and the Shvatim and Moshe Rabbeinu. It was specifically when Yisro drew close that brings the greatest kavod to Hashem. Why? Because if the light of Hashem is great enough to reach an Avram and a Yitzchak and a Yaakov, no, right? It's a light that's so great. But if it's able to extend all the way until it shines into the life of a Yisro, that manifests the greatest kavod. That's why Geirim are the holiest. There's so many dinim about how we need to treat Geirim, and I've heard from many Geirim that unfortunately they feel that we're lacking a little bit in this area. That the way that they feel that they're not so accepted sometimes, and we have to recognize, on the contrary, they're the greatest of the great. They are bringing kavod to Hashem that I can never hope to bring such kavod to Hashem. The way that a ger who the light of Hashem reached them in their life, unbelievably powerful. Ki afal pi. So then Reb Nosson says an important thing. Hillel is maskim that you can't just take the light as it is and march out to the street and start teaching people Kisvei Arizal. And that's not what we're talking about over here. Certainly, it needs to be concealed in some form. You need to find a way to get it to these people in a way that they could access it. Otherwise, it's called riboy ar. It's or riboy shemen. If you put too much oil, it puts out the candle. It's too much. Riboy ar garim lekiboy aner. It's too much. So you have to find a way to be able to cloak it and to put it into terminology that it's going to be accessible to them. And that's why I mentioned before that Hillel doesn't actually stand on one leg and teach them the entire Torah, right? Because that would have been a bit overwhelming for them. He finds a way to give it to them in a way that they could handle it. They get that, right? And then they could, Hillel finds a way to conceal the light, to be able to give it over in a way that it could be heard, in a way that it could be accepted. And so that's important both for Hillel and certainly for Shammai, who's not giving any light. When it comes to the deepest secrets of Torah, we have to conceal it. Like we already said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu conceals the light. So we know that we have to conceal it. And they have all these different strategies. And they're making all these fixings and rectifications and building structures. And they are concealing and enclothing these great, deep principles, the deepest principles of the Arizal and the Zohar Kadosh and all the Hasagas of the Mekubalim. They're cloaking them and clothing them in Divrei Torah that we could access. They're cloaking them, at least in the case of Rabbi Nachman, for anybody who's been privileged enough to enter into that world. People have no idea what Breslov is. It's unbelievable. It's the greatest concealment in Yiddishkeit. A couple of people dancing on trucks, and the whole thing, people have no idea what Breslov is. It is a universe of light, a universe of medicine for our generation. So Rabbi Nachman has 13 tales, right? Sipurei Maasiyos. 13 stories. It's all Kisvei Arizal. But you don't even need to know any of it. The first story you have to know, The Lost Princess. There's a book, somebody wrote about it. But outside of that, the rest of them you don't even need to know. Just to read the stories themselves, the deepest lights of Kabbalah are going inside your neshama. That was Rabbi Nachman. He made tikkunim to be able to get the deepest light to every single Jewish soul so that it could heal us. That it could mamish clean us out. Sipurei Maasiyos. That alone. And then Likutei Eitzos, and Likutei Moran, and Likutei Tfilos, and Likutei Halachos. We're talking about bookshelves of Torah. Bookshelves of Torah and Avoda and Eitzos and guidance. So we're in Breslov, but there are other tzaddikim who did that too. The Baal Shem HaKadosh, all of his stories. What do you think the stories are? Not just cute little stories. The deepest spiritual principles, Giluyim, revelations. A simple story, everybody knows from the Baal Shem Tov that this little kid on Yom Kippur walks in and he doesn't know how to daven, so he blows a whistle. It's a simple, silly story, right? It's the deepest revelation. Because the message of what the Baal Shem Tov is giving over there is that Rahmana Liba is that the main thing is the intention. And what do we know? Whose thing is more important? The person who davens every word in the machzor, or one person that mamish doesn't know how to read, but his heart is so overflowing with yearning to connect to Hashem? These are levushim. These are tzimtzumim. This is the way that the Baal Shem Tov is bringing a new light down to Am Yisrael, to give us strength and light in the generation before Mashiach. Until it can reach every soul, and everybody could have access to taste this great light. So they're increasing the light every day. The greater the spiritual revelation, the more light we're showing to the world, the more we're finding ways to bring it to each and every Jewish soul. Now, if you'll remember the Gemara had a shitas, Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, but they didn't pick it out of nowhere. The Beis Shammai said Mosif Peiches V'Oilech and Beis Hillel said Mosif V'Oilech. Where did they get it from? So if you remember, there are two shitas in the Gemara as to the foundation for the shitas Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel, and where they get their shitas from. One of the shitas is that the shita of Beis Shammai is founded on Parei HaChag, that just like over Sukkot, the karbanis decrease every day, so too over Chanuka. And what was the foundation for the shitas Beis Hillel? That says Mosif V'Oilech, remembers? Malin b'kodesh v'loy maridin. Which means, in Kedusha, we always want to increase. We don't want to decrease. Ki malin b'kodesh, that's what Reb Nosson is saying. That's the foundation for Shitas Hillel, which we now understand to be much more than just an isolated Shita vis-a-vis how to light the Chanuka menorah. It's much deeper than this because it's founded on the Shita of Hillel about what to do with the greatest lights of Torah. Malin b'kodesh v'loy maridin. What is that? What does that mean? V'kasha, says Reb Nosson, it's difficult to understand. V'chiyala ladas lahayra kedusha. What's the big chiddush? Says Beis Hillel. Because there's a principle. Malin b'kodesh v'loy maridin. We add in kedusha. We don't decrease. Says Reb Nosson. Who would think in their mind to decrease in kedusha? Kalatar kula. We have this principle of malin b'kodesh. What is the Gemara telling us? This is Shitas Hillel. Everybody knows. It's almost as if the Gemara doesn't need to give a reason for Shitas Hillel, because everyone would know this makes sense. Shitas Shammai needs a reason. Shitas Hillel? Everybody knows you add in Kedusha. What's the Gemara telling us? Listen to the way he reads it. Sisrei Torah. Achzeu b'chinas hanal. But this is an aspect of what we mentioned earlier. Sheyesh tzadikim shem gedolim b'mala be'emes. There are really great tzaddikim, and they are great. And Hashem needs them to be them in the world. But like we said, because of their incredible level, they cannot handle the world. They can't handle other people. They cannot relate to regular human beings. And therefore, and again, they probably don't mean for this to happen, but this is what happens. Because of how remarkably holy they are, they can unwittingly end up pushing people away. Because of their great Kedusha, sometimes the way that they relate to other people is like with this frustration of not understanding how someone cannot be on their level. And in this sense, people become pushed away from them. People feel stepped on, pushed down. They get angry with them. They get frustrated with them. They start to yell at people, right? And they start to demand things from people that people are not holding by. Because they simply cannot, again, because of their great Kedusha, they can't handle other people. Now listen to this, I put it in bold. I really feel that this is so crucial. For our dar, we need a new revelation of Torah for our generation. Something new. This is not what Hashem ultimately desires. Ki chafetz chesed, who HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants kindness. And Hashem wants tzadikim yirachmal Yisrael tamid. Hashem wants compassionate leadership. That's what Hashem wants. V'yikar voisam, He wants tzadikim that are going to draw close every Jew. Afilu imheim k'moishehem, irrespective of how they look and irrespective of their level of frumkeit or even beyond that. And listen to this. Even if Hashem Himself is angry with these people, whatever that means by Hashem anger, but Hashem Himself is putting up walls. It's a pasuk. Hashem puts sins cause that there should be walls spiritually between us and Hashem, and that's midas hadin. Even so, who writes Hashat Tzadikim Ispalu Aleim V'Yakarvum, even while HaKadosh Baruch Hu is hiding behind walls, Hashem wants that the Tzadikim should be shining a light of Chesed. K'may Shamar Rabbi Seinu Zal, the incredible Medrash al Pasuk on the Pasuk in Shemais after the Cheta Egel Moshe Yikach Hasa'el V'Nat Aleim Chutz L'Machane. Harchik Min HaMachane. What did Moshe Rabbeinu do? Moshe Rabbeinu looked at these people and he said, "Oh my gosh, a whole nation of sinners. They're not zocha to the Ol Moed." You know what Moshe did? He packed up the whole tent and he took it far away from the encampment. He said, these people are such sinners, they should have access now to the Oil Moed. Amar Hashem Yisbarach. HaKadosh Baruch Hu came to Moshe Rabbeinu, the quintessential, emblematic tzaddik. And he said, Ani bekas, va'ata bekas. I'm putting up walls, because that's the Midas Hadin. And I'm, so to speak, in a state of disappointment with Klal Yisrael. Va'ata bekas. And you're angry. Imkain, if this is going to be the situation, miyakarvein. This can't be, because who's going to be makar of them? Incredible medrash. Rashi, that Rashi brings with him. And you find the same thing with so many prophets and so many tzaddikim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu came to them and he said, Am Yisrael are not doing what they're supposed to do. That it pains Hashem, not because it pains, we can't hurt Hashem. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants a relationship with us. Hashem wants to give us everything good, and we're the ones that just aren't making use of it, and we cause ourselves pain. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, what's going on here? And when those Nevi'im and Tzaddikim confirmed what Hashem said, and they thought that their job was to commiserate, and their job was to say, yeah, Hashem, you're right. Am Yisrael are really, really horrible, miserable people. Oh boy, did HaKadosh Baruch Hu get angry with them. We find this by Yeshaya, more famously by Eliyahu Hanavi. Sha'amar Kana Kinesi. Eliyahu Hanavi says, Kanoi Kinesi, I'm filled with a spirit of anger and zealotry against Am Yisrael. What was the response? Sha'amalei Hashem said, well, ve'es Elisha ben Shafa timshach l'navi tachtecha. You know something? Elisha is going to become the Navi after you, instead of you. Hashem says, no, you're not a person who's fit for prophecy. Al sha'ata mekatrig al Yisrael. Eliyahu Hanavi. HaKadosh Baruch Hu couldn't handle that. Hashem wants tzaddikim that are melitze toiv an Am Yisrael, like the B'shit Rav. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants tzaddikim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants tzaddikim that are going to be melitz toiv an Am Yisrael. Ki Hashem Yisbarach roitza rak she'amlitzu toiv al Yisrael v'yirachmu al Yisrael afilu ala agruim l'kariv kulam elav Yisbarach. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to bring everybody to Him. K'may Moshe Rabbeinu alav shalom, like Moshe ultimately did. Shemasar nafshe al Yisrael v'amar b'ma'ay mechenin amay sifrecha. Moshe Rabbeinu said, listen, it's either me or them. It's either me or that. That's leadership. Moshe Rabbeinu doesn't jump ship and leave the ship to sink. Moshe Rabbeinu says to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, my whole essence is with this people. I'm giving myself, self-sacrificing all of me. And you understand, if the Torah is not just a book, but the Torah is the code of reality, Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't just saying, erase my name from your book. He was saying, fundamentally remove me from existence. Mecheni nam nisifrecha means that I don't want to be a part of this. Not an olam hazeh, and not an olam haba, and not anywhere, if you're not going to spare Klal Yisrael. That was leadership. So says Reb Nosson, now we could understand deeper the theory behind Shitas Hillel. First, we understand the Shitas Hillel is not just a Shita about lighting menorah. It's a very deep approach to Am Yisrael. Now we could understand the smach, the foundation for Shitas Hillel, in a much deeper level too. It doesn't just mean you increase holiness and don't decrease holiness. Says Reb Nosson, you know what it means? V'zeh b'chinas malin b'kodesh. What a klal. Listen to this. That the more a person accesses kodesh, a person's in a realm of kedusha, says Reb Nosson, what does Hashem want you to do with that? Malin b'kodesh. Lift people up with your kedusha. Lift people up with kedusha. Lift people up with the holiness that you access. Yoiser v'yoiser, v'loi moiridin. Don't push people away. That's the foundation for Shitas Hillel. It's a Pella. If you understand Shitas Hillel in a deeper way, as an approach to Kiruv, then you understand the smach for Shitas Hillel, which is Malin B'Kodesh. Hillel holds that anytime you access Kedusha, what are you going to do with that? You got to lift people up. Add more candles, loyma reading, not to push people away. Not to push people down because of your great kedusha. Never come to judging anybody because of the level that you've reached, the level of it I've reached and we've reached. Because we know how to really serve Hashem. And because of that, chas v'shalom, we push people away. No, make it accessible. Let other people taste it. Make it the most accessible for everyone to join, so that they can also taste, they can also access, they can also catch a glimpse of what we've managed to catch a glimpse of. Not to get to a place where we cannot handle hanging around lowlier people till we become frustrated, angry with them, because that's just going to push them away, and it's not what Hashem wants. That's the point of taking. Which car is it? Right, so that's an aspect of Bechinas Poiches V'Oilech Sha'amar Beis Shammai. Ki Loi Keinhu, because that's not what we need. Ki Tzarech Lias Mal in Bekodesh V'Loi Mo'ridin. Ki Kol Ma Shamagil Amali Yosef Asaga Gedol Yosef Tzarech L'Schakeim. We have to have Chachma like Hillel had, Chachma like Rabbi Nachman has, to be able to take these great lights and to put them into stories and advice and drushas and melodies and different pathways, hispodidus, all the different pieces of advice that a person can begin to catch a glimpse of the Arb Pashut of what Rabbi Nachman wanted to reveal, what Hillel taught his ger, not the whole Torah, but just v'yafta l'recha kamoicha, something accessible, tzarech le'schakim, v'lasis tzimsumim, chadashim, v'tachbulis, niflies, at yicholim l'kar nefashis rabbis, v'yoser, until you can reach the whole world, or the rapes, and therefore to heal, afilu agaruim, the most lowly, v'achoyim ma'oid, and the most distant. This is the Indian of Ner Chanuka. Where do we dafka light the Ner Chanuka? In a place where the Shechina all the year long doesn't descend. The Gemara in Sukkah says, "Me oilam lo yard the Shechina lamata me asar tfachim." And where do we light the Chanuka candles? Specifically in the place where the whole year long the Shechina doesn't descend to such a place. That's the Shita of Hillel. That's what Chanuka is. The Zebechinas Chanuka of Purim. And this is what Chanuka and Purim are all about. The most beautiful thing, just to be aware of what light is shining in the world now. What we can access, what we can open up to. We know that Chanuka and Purim were Galus Chagim. Galus Yamim Tovim. Chanuka is literally the last Chag that we have. It's accompanying us until Mashiach comes. Bimei Galus Hamar. In the days of exile, that in exile, Am Yisrael are called ill, or called sick. As it's written in the Heilige Zar, the Chazal darshan that on that pasuk it's a reference to Knesset Yisrael in Galus where we're sick, and we say HaKadosh Baruch Hu heal me, like we sing in Yidid Nefesh, right? Heal me, we're sick. It says Reb Nosson, there's a way of being so incredibly sick that you cannot even get to the doctor. One kind of person is sick, so he drives himself in the car to a doctor. It's the same guy that we mentioned earlier who has a bit of the strep, and he can go to his GP. But a person who's the sickest, who cannot even move, not just any doctor needs to come pay him a home visit. The greatest surgeon, the greatest specialist needs to come to that person in his home. Says Reb Nosson, that's what it means that we cannot be oilil regel nowadays. Not only because we don't have a Beis Hamikdash and so there's nowhere to go, deeper. We cannot go because we cannot move. Means even if there was a Beis Hamikdash, in our spiritual state, we're an aspect of a chayla that can't get to the doctor. That's what Gullus is. Says Reb Nosson, Ein anu yicholim la'alois v'leirais. That's what it means. We're not able, not just because there is no Beis Hamikdash, because it's a din in us. Ein anu yicholim, like we say in Mosif. We don't have the capacity, the power, the strength. La'alois v'leirais v'lishtach v'lefanav v'shalish pa'amir agleinu. Lichnos lebeis HaKadosh, u'abeis HaMikdash, lekabel or apanim, to receive the countenance of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Yara Hashem, panav elecha, ki ba'ar panecha nasata lanu, Hashem lekeinu taras chaim, ba'avas chesed. We don't have the strength to go. Ki mibnei chateinu golinu me'artzeinu, v'nisar chaknu, ve'einu ani yochaylim. We're so weak. Al kein chamal aleinu bal harachamim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the bal harachamim, who we referred to in the bracha of Kriya Shema, right before Kriya Shema. I think many people, and even myself up until pretty recently, didn't really reflect on this. We refer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu as the word HaMerachim. Very beautiful. It's good to take a second or two, right? Avinu av harachaman, HaMerachim. Very beautiful way of referring to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The merciful one. HaMerachim, Rachim Aleinu. So the Baal HaRachamim, the Racham of HaAtzumim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu had such mercy on us. What did He do? V'ahaisiv lanu shnei yamim ha'kdoshim ha'elu. He gave us 2 yamim tovim, sheim Chanuka uPurim, in Galus. Shetikna lanu tzadikim ha'gdolim, that the greatest tzadikim, sheim Anshe Knesses ha'gdola, instituted, kedei lahamshich lanu ar hapanim, so that we can experience this light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's love and kindness, l'soich beisenu, into our dining rooms. B'toikif galusenu, in the middle of Hendon in 2023, in the depth of exile. Sheyizka kol echad bebeisai b'Chanuka, that each and every Jew is zoche in his or her own home. Lahadlik ner Chanuka, to light these neiros u'b'chinas or hapanim, which is shining the light of the menorah. B'chinas lahatzil panim mishamen, it makes our face shine. Lahatzil panim mishamen, from this holy oil. Shezeh b'chinas hasagas halukus, which is an aspect of being able to attain and to experience the presence of the divine. V'chein b'Purim, and the same thing happens on Purim. Kol echem mamshech alatzmim b'chinas kabbalas haTorah shemekablam az b'chol shana b'toikev ha'galus b'chinas kimu v'kiblu. We re-accept the Torah, each of us in our own place in exile. Valkain, without getting into the depth of this now, I do want to finish. We have a few minutes left. Chanuka Purim him bebechinas raglim. In the Kisvei Arizal and the Zar Kadosh, without getting into it now, Chanuka and Purim are connected to the feet. Each Yom Tov is connected to a different limb. Without getting into the depth of this, Chanuka and Purim are connected to the feet. I mean, literally, they're called regalim, right? They're connected to the raglayim. They are connected to the feet. Purim is the right leg, and Chanuka is the left leg. An aspect of the midah of Netzach, which is Purim, Chuasam Hayisal Netzach, and Chanuka is the midah of Hod. Says Reb Nosson, what does that mean in the context of what we're saying? How does a person travel to visit a person who's so ill? He's mevaker chole. What does it necessitate to be mevaker chole somebody? You got to move, meaning you have to go from your place to their place. Says Reb Nosson, the most amazing thing. Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot are called the Shalosh Regalim. Why? Ostensibly, one of the reasons is because we were Oile L'Regal. We had feet to be able to ascend, to go to the hospital, so to speak, right? To go to the great doctor, to the master of heaven and earth, who filled our lives with every kind of healing. But Chanuka and Purim, you know whose Raglayim are being referenced when the Arizal tells us that they're connected to Raglayim? The Raglayim of the Mevaker Choyle. V'zeh b'chinas mitzvahs bikur choylin. Sh'a mitzvah b'raglin. It's all about going, walking. Ha'ne mechina hanal. Listen to those beautiful words. Sh'a Hashem yizbarach merachim aleinu v'ahoylech levakreinu. On Chanuka and Purim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes to visit us. U'meir lanu panim ha'kdoshim b'toikev galuseinu. And He shines for us in the deepest darkness of our exile, Daika specifically in the time that we're experiencing this thick choshech. HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes to visit us. Shanu choylim ke'ela, that we're so weak and so sick. That in an honest, authentic, vulnerable, sincere moment, every single person here knows what we're sick with. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes to be mevaker us. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu fills our life with this light, and He gives us strength through these 2 holy Yamim Tovim. Shem Chanuka Purim, Shem Ya'adim Kedoshim. When do we have these Yamim Tovim? B'yemei hachol, dafka in the weekdays. It's a regular weekday. We're sitting here. We all drove here, or whatever it is, and you know, can have phones in our pockets. B'yemei hachol, Shem Chinas Yemei Hagolus, which vis-a-vis Shabbos is like exile. It's just a regular weekday. We feel like we're weekday people. We feel weak, like the weekdays, spelled differently, but we feel weak. Nor mamish the bechina of the week. But when we kindle those lights in our homes, that's the light of the Beis HaMikdash. That's the light of the Shechina that comes to visit us with those raglayim, Pesach, Purim, and Chanuka. Through the teachings and the guidance and the stories and the revelations of the great tzaddikim who are in the tradition of having mercy on us, who found ways of healing us. Now this goes back to Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. Beis Shammai says, no, that's not what Chanuka is about. Sure, there's a great light, but the greater the light, the more distant it is. And if you're too sick to get to the hospital, no, deal with it. You need to get stronger until you have the feet to be able to get to the Beis HaMikdash. That's Shita Shammai. But Beis Hillel is this Shita. Beis Hillel says, Adarabba, Mosif v'hoilech. The greater the energy of the nace, the more candles we're lighting, the more we're finding a way to make use of the deepest. We should have watered Torah down and then give it to people who are distant. They need the deepest secrets of Torah. They mamish need the deepest giluyim, because what else is going to reach them in their darkness? What else is going to reach us in our darkness, if not the deepest Torah there is? But it has to be enclosed and encased in a way that it could be accessed without being too overwhelming, without causing a shvira. Now here he says something fascinating, and with this we come to the end. This machlokes between Shammai and Hillel is bechinas klal hamachlokes shebechol dar al tzadikim hashleimim ha'oskim lekarv nefashos ha'archaikim l'Hashem yisbarach. In every single generation, it's nothing new. Tzadikim that specifically involved themselves in trying to bring others close to Yiddishkeit, there was always pushback against them in every single generation. And this sits at the core of what that is, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in his great master plan, always, throughout history, needed both. And in a certain sense, Elu ve'elu divrei l'chiyam chaim, in the way that they offshoot each other, and each one keeps it in bounds. I'm speaking specifically about the machlokes between the Hasidim, the Baal Shem Tov, which was clearly this approach, and the detractors, right? The more Lithuanian-oriented Yiddim, Misnagdim is a very harsh term, right? The other Yiddim who had a different approach. It's the Shitas Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. And like the Tzemach Tzedek said, without the Gra, Hasidim might have gone off the rails. Without Hasidus, Yiddishkeit might have died, right? Might have just expired because people weren't connecting. So we need both, just like we needed Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel. But this is the way to understand what the fundamental root of these shitas are, and they're both rooted in Kedusha. In every generation, Reb Noach Weinberg, for example, anybody knows, there were people that fundamentally disagreed with that approach. What are you doing? You're taking people out, sitting in Koilel, and now they're going and they're hanging out with all the... It's Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel. It's Mosif v'hoilech, Poichas v'hoilech. And there are even great tzaddikim that disagree. They are in that aspect manifesting the energy of Shammai, the energy of Kpeda, the energy of Din. And so it enters into their heart, that they have the sense that this is inappropriate, shouldn't be done. In most generations in Jewish history, there was some form of this tension. And specifically now, as we get closer to Mashiach, he was referring to the great battles in his dar, between the Gra and the Baal Shem HaKadosh, and more specifically on his Rebbe, which continues Ad Hayom Hazeh, which is a horrible mistake that many people are making. And how much detractors there were to Rabbi Nachman and the aura that he was trying to spread in the world, what he went through, the snagdus, not from the misnagdim, from Lithuanian Jews, and those who were non-Hasidim, from the Hasidim, what he went through, the Shpala Zayda, do you know that Reb Nosson was almost killed? He had a hitman, not from some Ukrainian. It's hard even to say, to be Makatri, that there were Jews who went out to kill Reb Nosson, and they killed the butcher in the town, whose name was Reb Nosson. They got the wrong man. Imagine, ad kedei kach. We have no hasaga what we think today. what was going on. Broken windows, threats, businesses closed down, marriages split apart. We have no idea the tokef of what they went through. Zeicher Tzadik Kadosh Lavracha. Now why? Says Reb Nosson, because fundamentally this was Rabbi Nachman's approach. Al Asher Masar Nafshei Mineged. That Rabbi Nachman, who lived a very short life until 39 years old and suffered horribly from tuberculosis for the latter part of his life, lost his first wife, lost 4 children, had to travel from place to place, and was just misunderstood and continues to be misunderstood. Was Moiser Nefesh Va'asak Kol Yamav. All he wanted to do was L'rachim Al Yisrael. That's all he did. Hashem sent a tzaddik to have mercy on the last generation before the coming of Mashiach. Al kol harachokim, to be able to give a lifeline to the most distant of distant Yidden, l'karvam Hashem Yisbarach, to give them hope, something to hold on to. And Rabbi Nachman himself, toward the end of his life, and this made people very angry, he sat and he played chess with the heads of the Haskalah. Mamish, the heads of the Haskalah, didn't talk one word of Torah with them. We only have one conversation where Torah crept in, but he was mikar with them through his chess playing. Because this is how he would slip in ideas and plant in. He knew how to be like Hillel, to be malbish, the deepest iris, in such a way. And the other Hasidim, like, what is he doing? Like, what is this lowlife doing? That's what they thought. Reb Simcha Bunim Pshisk was the same way. He was a pharmacist. He would also play chess with the Hasidim. And these maskilim were hounded by the other tzaddikim. They were thrown out of every court that they went to. They were seen as destroying Yiddishkeit. We can't relate to these people. Rabbi Nachman says we can't relate to them. Well, how's that going to help? We need to be Makar of them. And how are we going to be Makar of them if we're not going to utilize the greatest light that there is? The Iris, the Kedusha of this tradition of Pnimius HaTorah that Hashem is revealing steadily throughout the generations, starting from Reb Shimon Bar Yochai through to the Arizal, deeper through the Gra and the Baal Shem HaKadosh Ramchal, and down to our days, when the tzaddikim are all drawing on these Torahs. And by the way, it's not just unique to Rabbi Nachman. Any tzaddik whose teachings are founded on this Gilui is part of this. What do you think Rav Hutner did? All Pachad Yitzchak, even if it's not in the Lashon of Nister, it's all Pnimius. They're not to learn it in such a way. The Pachad Yitzchak, all of Reb Dessler's Sfarim, Reb Moshe Shapira, all of this is drawing in one form or another on Shitas Hillel to start to bring these teachings to the Hamoin Am. The Leshem says that he was Mekabel from Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, that after the year 1840, anybody who wants to access the lights of Kabbalah, it's mutter for them. Everything changed after 1840, which is a date that's already given by the Zohar Kodesh for when the gates of heaven and earth would open up. The Leshem writes that explicitly. He says, today things have changed. These lights are accessible. And sometimes we feel like we're in darkness. Kodesh Baruch Hu gave us light, gave us tzaddikim, gave us teachings, gave us sfarim. There's what to access. Let's finish the last 5 minutes. He says, you want to know the earliest root for this machlokes? Go back to the brothers with Yosef. This was his whole thing, to bring Yidden back to Hashem. And that's why, just like Shitas Hillel, the greater the light, the more light you got to add to the world. He understood also how to build these vessels and knit these complex tapestries of light. So that anybody who wants to get closer to Hashem could find something to hold on to, could find hope, could find meaning, could find depth. Says Reb Nosson, his very name hints to this. His name was Yosef, which is an aspect of Chinas Mosif V'holech, Yosef. This was his whole Metzias. He wanted to add light in the world. But the Shvatim, Afal Pishu Kulim Kedoshim, we know Mitasa Shlema, all the Shvatim were so holy. Kulim Tzadikim Kedolim, they were the most glorious Tzadikim there are. They were the Bechina of Shammai. They were the aspect of Midas Hadin. They pushed back against Yosef HaTzadik. Say Chazal, what does it mean, Ben Gurei Aviv? That Yaakov dwelled in the land of his father, sojourning. Darsh Rabbi Seinu Zal, what does Chazal say? What is Be'eretz Megurei Aviv? Shem Megayer Gerim. Yaakov Avinu was going to do what his father did, which is to draw Gerim. People have no connection to Kedusha, closer to Hashem. Kamuv of Dvar Zal, like Rabbi Nachman brings about Gerim. V'zeu Eila told us Yaakov Yosef. Right afterwards it says, Hanashe Yosef halach b'derech Aviv Yaakov. Yaakov returned to doing what his father did, Yitzchak, which is to be Megar Gerim. By the way, why did Yitzchak be Megar Gerim? Where did he get that from? his father Avram, Hanefesh Asher Asu B'charan. This is the family business. They devoted their lives to bringing close the most distant souls to Hashem. So Yaakov went to do what his father did, which is what his father did, and then the next pasuk says, Eila Taltis Yaakov, Yosef. Says Reb Nosson, that hints to us that we're telling you that Yosef HaTzadik went in the way of his father. He was also trying to share the light with the world of the Kariv Nefashos Rechaikos. We know that whatever happened to Yaakov Avinu happened to Yosef, that they had the same lives and their trajectories paralleled each other. Yaakov Avinu gave anything that he was makabel from his Rabbeim, gave it to Yosef. This is all connected to the pasuk Miguri Aviv, Shehu Mashahaya Yaakov Megar Gerim, a reference to Yaakov Avinu devoting his life to bringing close the most distant Jews to Hashem, the most distant souls, people to Hashem. The take of Nismach Elotel Des Yaakov Yosef Shepirushai Shemasalei Kol Chachmasai. And right after that, we tell you that Yaakov Avinu gave everything that he had, which is the Chachma being Megar Gerim, he gave it to Yosef. Hainu Kanal. Because it takes so much chachma. You have to be such an incredible chacham to know how to take these ideas and to be malbish them and to clothe them in such a way that they can be accessible. Until it can be administrable to those who are so ill, because you don't want to kill them by overloading them with what they need, because it can be too much. You have to give them the right amount. Yaakov gave him this chachma. This is the greatest chachma, to know how to bring these ideas down into the world where people can access them. And this is the end. What does it mean? Yosef was 17 years old. He was a shepherd with his brothers. What does Rayat Sign mean? Every manhig that we've had, they were all shepherds. Moshe Rabbeinu was a shepherd. All the Avos HaKadoshim were shepherds. Why were they shepherds? Say Chazal, because they knew how to take care of sheep. They knew how to take care of Jews. They were shepherds. How was he a shepherd? 17. Already the Kadmonim say Shvasrei b'Gematria Tov. This particular 17 is a reference to the word Tov, which is Gematria 17. I believe it's a Zohar Kadosh. Yeah, Kemuva in the Zohar Kadosh. Yosef hayat Tov lakal. How was he a Rayat Sign? What was his mahalach in shepherding? Just being kind to everyone. He was bringing everyone close to Hashem. He found good points in the most distant Jews. He didn't give up on anybody. He didn't push anybody away and say, well, they need to be strong enough until they can come to my shiur. He found a way to get his shiur in such a way that it could access everyone. He was Taiv Lakal, and he brought them close. This is what it means. The next pasuk, that he was a na'ar. He acted childishly, like Chazal say with Bnei Bila, Bnei Zilpa. What's Bnei Bila, Bnei Zilpa? Sheim Bnei Ashvachos. Him mechinas mishpachas hayrudish b'Yisrael. Sheim moyrdis atzmei aleim b'Yosef gedei lekarvam. Bnei Bila, Bnei Zilpa were not the Bnei Rachel, Bnei Leah, even though they were plenty holy. But it's an aspect to those who are pushed down. And he brings a remez. You know why they're called Bnei Bila, Bnei Zilpa? As a remez, shenechas behem b'Yosef abal davar v'chilosav. They're wrapped up in the Yetzer Hara. They're in his clutches. How do we know that they're wrapped up in the Yetzer Hara's clutches? Zabachinas b'nei Bila, b'chinas the pasuk in Yecheskel says, "Balahois atnech." I've given you into the balahois. Balahois is like bewilderment, behala, right? V'lo nered lebahala. And Rashi says, "Shindalids." It's a reference to the Satan. Hainu cheles Yetzer Hara shem shindalid uklipas shem avalim umavalim umerashim es ha'adam. So they are b'nei Bila, b'nei balahois. They're the Jews who are wrapped up in the Satan's clutches. And the word zilpa also, zalafa, is zilpa. Zalafa achazasni mirashayim. I am shuddering because I'm seized by the wicked. Zalafa is zilpa. Ki chelas yetzarim b'chinas balahois v'zalapos. B'nei Bila, b'nei zilpa, balahois and zalapos. V'chol anim shacham acharem nekram b'nei Bila, b'nei zilpa. Anybody who's in that mahalach is called Bnei Bila, Bnei Zilpa, Tzadik HaGadol, B'chinas Yosef. But the whole thing of the greatest tzaddik of all, the greatest light of all, Isaac Imahem, he dafka hangs out with them, he plays chess with them, and he has events where they have tons of food and alcohol, and he takes them on trips, and he has a good time with them, and he's makar of them in this way. A lot of people look and they say, what's the whole thing? What's all this stuff? Just sit down and teach them Torah. No. Bnei Bila, Bnei Zilpa, V'unar. It's a chachma. It's a chachma. How to build relationships. A chachma. And then, toich kedei, things get in. It's a chachma. Kiruv, a chachma. And you have to be the tzaddik gadol, connected to the deepest iris of Torah, in order to channel it through all the barbecues and everything else, and then be able to reach them, the greatest lights of Torah. Hatzadak HaGadol b'chinas Yosef, Oisiki Mahem, Umoyredes Atzmai Alehem, Kedei Lekarvam LaHashem Yisbarach. This was Yosef's job. V'zehu, v'hunar, es b'nei Bilav, es b'nei Zilpa. Peirush Rashi, Shoya Oisem Masa Narus. How did he get to them? How is he Royat sign? Yud Zayin Shana 17, Gematria Toiv. How did he do it? Because Oisem Masa Narus. He knew how to make himself relatable, how to hang out with others. Ki at tzaddik emes, the true tzaddik, but oitzim chachmasai, in his great wisdom, moyredes atzmei aleim kol kach. He puts himself into such a matziv, achenidme, till it looks to other people, kilo oisem maisa naris. Why don't you just go learn, continue in koilel and say, what are you maisa naris for? You're hanging out with all these people and just having a blast. I mean, this is not real Yiddishkeit. Yosef HaTzadik knew how to be a nar for the purpose, b'nei Bila, b'nei Zilpa, Mishei Aviv. He hangs out with them, he schmoozes with them about life and about the news. He eats with them and he drinks with them. And he takes them on trips. Mamish, this is 200 years ago this was written. He takes them on trips and he plays football with them and he has a good time with them. But his whole kavana is to bring them close to Hashem. Nachman speaks about again and again. How the greatest tzaddik daika is the one who's able to go all the way down and bring those lights to reach every Jew. It all looks like Masa Naras. And the other tzaddikim that don't understand this, the Bechina of Shammai, say, what are you doing? They're married. Because who do we paskin like, Chevra? At the end of the day, we paskin like Hillel. Okay, at the end of the day, we paskin like Shammai. But for now, in Olam Hazeh, we paskin like Hillel. This is what Hashem wants. Find a way to connect yourself and myself and ourselves to the deepest lights of Torah, and then to utilize those lights. Hashem should give us the chachma to be able to be malbishit, to reach the most distant Jews. Because kiruv will be impossible unless we are dealing with the greatest iris that were revealed by the greatest tzaddikim. This is a little taste of a part of one drasha from Likutei Halachos that has thousands of pages, drashas that span 30, 40, 50, 60 pages, some of them. That's all founded on Rabbi Nachman's Torahs, of which there are 411 in Likutei Moran. There's a Sefer Likutei Tfilas that Reb Nosson wrote, which is a tefillah on every Torah. So you learn the Torah, you say the tefillah, then you learn Likutei Halachos, and it's a totally different realm. It's the same Torah, same halacha, same mitzvahs. It's the hour of Mashiach, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is sending down into the world, which is a process. As we get closer and closer, the sun is shining, and it would be a huge chaval if we continued obstinately to prevent ourselves from accessing the great matana that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has gifted us with these tzaddikim and this tradition of Pnimiyas HaTorah. Thank you so much for joining. Ashreinu.